What's up everybody, Jesse here, or GameOverJesse as some of you all may know me, and here with me is Daniel, as always. Daniel.
As always.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm here as always, except for that one time that I wasn't.
Yes, and the one time that I wasn't. So we just finished a great discussion interview with the owner of Zelda Informer and Zelda Dungeon, Mossies. You guys can go watch that if you haven't already. It should post before this, so if you're watching this, please go check it out. He talks about the entire creation and history for about an hour of Zelda Informer, Zelda Dungeon, Pokemon Dungeon, Darksiders Dungeon, wiki pages he's been a part of. Just if you're a fan of the Zelda community, it's a conversation that I'm sure most of you would be excited to listen to. But for now, we're going to do the Highlands Gamescast. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 games we played in 2017, our predictions for games and events in 2018. Nintendo has hinted at their next console during an interview. Nintendo Switch was hacked again. We have rumors from people who have been correct about rumors before with the upcoming Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. And then, finally, as always, we have our Zelda mailbag, where we answer questions sent in by viewers like yourself. If you would like to have your question answered, you can leave them in the comments below of our mailbag videos, or head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse and leave your comments as a message to us on Patreon, like Casey Willis did. But before we get to any of that, we have our shoutouts for our Patreon supporters. We have George Martinez, Casey Willis, Rusty Caulfield, Robbie Morgan, Shadow to Us, Lovable Christie, Key of Time, 15, Lunarium, Megan Neal, Tight-Lipped Gaming, and Ashley Feltz. Thank you all for supporting. And Ashley, also a friend on Discord of the channel, left this as her Patreon message, which I thought was nice, so I was going to share it with some of you guys. She says, "Hey Jesse, my name is Ashley, and I became one of your Patreons a couple of days ago. I decided to support you over others because I fractured my elbow back in November." I guess this means we need to go out and break more people's elbows.
Oh yeah.
She continues, "So now I'm very limited in what I can do at work, and listening to your podcasts, theories, and discussions has helped me get through the day. I'm also a huge Zelda fan and a mom to a little girl." Daniel and I are both parents as well. She continues, "I'm not sure how often you check your messages on here, but I just wanted to introduce myself somehow. I know you're a busy man. Hope to hear from you soon." Well, thank you, Ashley, for your very kind and thoughtful message there. Daniel and I, we talked about this a little bit before we started after the interview with Mossies that we had about that it was nice when people reach out and give great messages like this. It lets us know that we're doing a good job. So, especially where she says she picked us over everyone else. So
That's so nice, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so
Well, we're glad to have you, Ashley.
yeah.
If you're watching this.
So starting off our news, our top 5 games for 2017. Now this isn't limited to Nintendo Switch games, but something tells me it's going to take up most of the list.
Possibly.
Alright, so
the other question is, are we limiting ourselves to games that we released or that were released this year, or games that we just played for the first time this year?
4 that released this year and 1 that we played first this year. Alright, let's begin with you, Daniel.
Okay, let's start at 5 and then 1, I guess.
Okay,
you know,
so
just,
so we
suspense.
like back and forth.
Sure.
Your 5
So,
and my 5.
My 5th is going to be one that was not released this year, but I played for the first time this year. And that would be Fire Emblem Awakening. I am a Fire Emblem fan. I've played a number of the games, but I hadn't played Awakening, even though that's kind of the big one now. And I feel bad that I've never gotten around to it, you know. But you know, I got it for Christmas last year, I was already in the middle of another game, so I didn't get around to playing it till slightly after the new year, and it was a great way to start the year and in my year of gaming in 2017. And you know, there's a lot of things that they add in that title that weren't in previous Fire Emblem games that I really enjoyed. Especially like the character development is a lot more rich than some of the other ones that came before it. Like my previous favorite before that one was probably Sacred Stones. I really liked that one, but this one I felt just like there was a lot more depth to the characters, so it might have become my favorite Fire Emblem game. I've still only played it the one time through though. I gotta give myself a break before jumping back into it, and then I was going to play it again, but then so many other very important games that are on this list came out, so I haven't. What's your number 5, Jesse?
I would say my number 5 is Final Fantasy 15, which didn't come out this year, so it's my one game that has released previously, but I only really had the chance to really dig into it this year. I'm a big fan of older Final Fantasy games, like especially Final Fantasy X. I played through it a lot. I actually enjoyed Final Fantasy 13, which a lot of diehard Final Fantasy fans claim destroyed the series.
Oh no.
Yeah, because there was Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, and 13-3. The story got insanely confusing. It wasn't as innovative as Final Fantasy games typically are. So
right.
There was a lot of controversy with those 3 games, especially because it was supposed to be Final Fantasy 13, and then Versus 13, which became 15, ended up being delayed. So instead of finishing Versus 13, they just kept spinning out sequels to 13. So we had 13-2, 13-3, when the game everyone really wanted was just Versus 13, which apparently turned out better because it was delayed so long. So Final Fantasy 15, a really great game. The only complaint that I have is I played it after Breath of the Wild. So whenever you come across like a rock or a hill or something, you have that urge to just climb up it, but you can't. So Breath of the Wild has ruined certain games for me. Not necessarily ruined them, but made them feel less fun, because it's like you go to do something and then you remember it's like, oh, this isn't Zelda.
Especially older Zelda games too.
Yes. I had that with after playing Skyward Sword. You go back to play Twilight Princess or Wind Waker, and you go to run, and he just rolls, and he's like, why?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll go on to number 4 then.
Yes, number 4.
This one's a tough call for me. It was I was stuck between 2 titles.
Okay.
And it was for me between Mario and Rabbids and Splatoon 2. And you know, both of which I've really enjoyed a lot. But I think I gotta hand this one to Mario Rabbids, and that's just because it's sort of retained my attention longer, I guess, would be the most accurate way to put it. Okay. Nothing against Splatoon 2. I really enjoy it. I'm part of we have a in our Discord server we have the mod squad, and so a bunch of us from that group started our own little Splatoon squad for online games, and we play together sometimes, and that's a lot of fun. But the I guess in the same way that I like Fire Emblem, like I really like that tactical turn-based role playing, and Mario Rabbids, like at first I thought I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was gonna be like trash, to be honest. And then the trailers came out. I was like, okay, it looks kind of good. And then I started playing. And I was like, okay, it's kind of fun, but I'll keep playing it just to see what's in store. And the more I played it, the more like when I got into leveling up the skill trees and things like that, and the more creative I started getting with how you can take your turns in the game. Like you can attack first and then move, as opposed to having to end your turn after a move. And it just started kind of opening up more and more, and I was started to see the game's creativity more and more, and so I actually really enjoy that game a lot now. Like it made it onto this list. So yeah, that's my number 4 pick.
All right, my number 4, Destiny 2, which had a bit of controversy with the way it was handling loot crates, but there was other games, Star Wars, that came out that did an even worse job at handling loot crates. So
yes, infamously so.
Yes, people disliked them so much that the videos that we posted did worse than any other videos when we talked about loot crates, just because people were so tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
So I would say Destiny 2 because it's a game that I can pick up, and because there was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was really the only game that I would play that was like the typical army game. And before that, I would say it goes all the way back to like GoldenEye or Perfect Dark on Nintendo 64. So those are really the only games like that I enjoyed. But with Destiny, it isn't the typical army game to where you just like one army, like good guy versus bad guy or whatever. Like with Destiny, it's more of an online experience. There are like different story missions. There's more of an RPG element behind it to kind of make you want to reach that next level. It's not just, oh, if you reach this level, then you get this gun or this attachment for the gun. And that you would, like, you actually unlock powers and stuff. So it's really interesting, especially for a game that I don't actually play games for that long. So to have something I can pick up for like 10 minutes and play 1 or 2 rounds and then leave is really good.
Yeah. Right on.
All right. So what's your number 3?
My number 3, I've mentioned how much I love this game previously on the podcast. People are going to scoff at all my Nintendo picks and be like calling me a fanboy, and you know what, you're right. But I totally am. But yeah, my number 3, I'm going to go with Samus Returns, the 3DS Metroid title that came out. Apart from Zelda and Mario, Metroid is my favorite franchise. Just like as my third favorite beyond those two. And you know, my favorite Metroid game is Super Metroid. You know, it's pretty close between Metroid Prime and Super Metroid, but like Super Metroid is kind of nice in that like I can pick it up, play it for 3 hours, 100% complete the game in 3 hours, and it's like half the time of my life. I've enjoyed the other titles. Fusion as well is really good, and Zero Mission. I actually can't play the original. I find it just unplayable because I played Zero Mission first. That was my problem, is I played Zero Mission first, and then I went to play the original, and it just wasn't... I couldn't do it because Zero Mission improved it so much, right?
Yeah.
But Metroid 2, the original Game Boy title, was the only Metroid game that I had never played. Just because I'd never gotten my hands on it for some odd reason or other, right? And sort of, it's a game that for the overall story of the franchise is very important, especially because basically it leads right into the events of Super Metroid, which basically influences the rest of the series from there. So having this sort of remake, I was gonna say re-release, but it's really rebuilt from the ground up. Like, it's totally revamped in every way. Like, it bears very little similarity to the original, but having that sort of missing piece of the big Metroid puzzle finally was awesome. And it's really fun and really hard as well. Like, that game will punish you. But I'm always a fan of challenge. Like, I really like a game where I can struggle on a fight for hours, because when I beat that boss fight, you know, I feel super triumphant. And the things that they added to that game that weren't in the original were really well implemented. And like, I would say the only issues with the game are, like, my only negative things are sort of issues that were problematic from the original that just carried over. But otherwise, like, it's a really like almost flawless game in my opinion. Like, and for the diehard Metroids fans, like, it's a very awesome return to form, while also trying a lot of new things that are really well executed. So I should just do a full review video of this. But yeah, so I really like Samus Returns. That's my number 3 pick.
All right. I would say my number 3 would see. It kind of comes down to the same situation you had with Splatoon and I'm gonna say Splatoon because that's probably the best multiplayer game on the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
So
because they don't have Smash yet.
Yeah, I'm going to put Splatoon there. I was going to say Mario Cross Rabbids, but which was a game everybody was just confused about. Like, it was a rumor for a long time before it was announced, but then it was just a thing that's like, no, they're making that up. That's why. Who would want that? Like, who would want Mario Cross Rabbids? But then it ends up being really good. So, but I'm gonna have to go with Splatoon just because it's a lot of fun. I had a few friends whenever I would play it, where I would just like text one of them at like one of my friends, Jeannie. Yeah, you can pronounce it a couple different ways, but she was one of the people that I went to the Zelda Symphony with, and she always wakes up really early. So if I was working on a video at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I could just text her and be like, hey, let's play Splatoon. So that was one of the games that I played whenever I was bored to kind of pass the time, and playing it with other people, especially the people on Discord, was really great as well. So
yeah, it's kind of nice because I don't have a lot of friends that have a Switch in real life, and so it's nice that we have this Discord server full of people who are super psyched about it, and that we could play online together. And
yeah,
like that was the best part of Splatoon for me as well, even though it didn't make my list.
All right, number 2 for you.
I gotta say, my number 2 and my number 1 are not gonna surprise anyone who's watched this podcast.
I think we're gonna have the same number 2. And
we
same number
we
1.
just might. My number 2 is Mario Odyssey.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, man, what a fantastic game! Like, just everything I wanted in a 3D Mario, basically. Like, now
except multiplayer.
Except multiplayer.
Real multiplayer.
Yeah.
Like, having a second player, like, if you could play as Mario and then I could play as Luigi online, that would make the game, that would take it from like a 10 out of 10 to an 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
In the same way.
Absolutely.
Like,
especially if there was sort of like a team jump, like you know, you can bounce off Cappy, or if you could even just pick up and throw your teammate or whatever, you know, like, that would be really, they could do some really cool things with it.
Yeah.
But they don't.
But that leaves room for Odyssey 2 to progress in that way.
My only beef with Odyssey is that you can't ride Yoshi. You can only use the capture mechanic with him, and I would rather just be able to hop on his back. But like in Galaxy you could do it, right? Or Galaxy 2 was. Now otherwise this game, like I'm still playing it. I'm still like I'll sit down play it for an hour, and then I'll play Mario Rabbids for an hour or something like that, right? But I'm up to like almost 800 moons, I think. Like, and I don't even know if there's a limit to how many you can buy in the shops, but I keep buying them, and I keep going to, every time I go to a kingdom, I'll find more. And it was like only pretty recently that I realized that there's the list and you can check. So then I went back to Mushroom Kingdom, and I'm like having to go through the list to make sure I got everything. Like, I'm being a total completionist nut about this game. And it's, you know, and I got it day one, and I'm still playing it, and there's so much to do and so much to find in every world. maybe not to the extent as probably both of our number one pick, which will not surprise and a single person watching this, but like it's other than the number one pick, it's the game I've put the most hours into this year.
Yeah, Mario, my number two as well. Very, very fun game. Certain parts of it are even funner than Breath of the Wild, which they were both like Game of the Year from different websites, or nominees for Game of the Year. So there are certain things about Zelda that's better than Mario, and then there's certain things about Mario that's better than Zelda. So with Mario,
but I would say like they're both 10 out of 10 games. Like absolutely. And Mario's never felt better to control, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really cool in this game how if you're running uphill or downhill, there's actual momentum to it. So like you'll slow down when you go uphill, and then when you go downhill, he'll speed up, which doesn't necessarily affect the gameplay that much, but it's like an interesting extra thing that they added that they didn't need to. So there's a lot of focus on detail that wasn't in previous Mario games. But yeah, overall just an incredibly fun, colorful, crazy game.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, like there's so much of like I think like Nintendo's taken this very restriction-free approach with, you know, their two huge releases this year being Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. And I just feel like the amount of like flexibility and approach to how you can do things in Odyssey really shows that. Like the just having that cap bounce when you're jumping is just this huge thing. Like you can, let's say for example, spoilers for like, or minor spoilers I would say, in the Mushroom Kingdom you can throw your hat onto the scarecrow to cause a staircase to appear to get on the roof of the castle, or you can jump off the bridge between two spires and wall jump up there. I've done it that way too. Or, and Game Explain has a video showing you how to do this, you can jump, do a dive, throw your hat, bounce off the hat, and then do another dive in the air to get onto and you can get on the roof that way. And it's just like there's so many approaches, and Mario's jumping skills are off the hook in this game because of that extra bounce, you know, and it's just
perfected.
There's so much freedom,
parkour.
You know. He has perfected it. Now you can't climb everything, but you know, like other than that, it's a very freeing Mario experience, especially since I grew up playing Super Mario World, which is you know, like pretty linear. So yeah. All
right. Well, you can't climb everything in Mario, as you said, but you can climb everything in Breath of the Wild, which is our first
what do you
game.
know? That's my number one pick. What a surprise.
Yeah. I don't think too many people shocked about this. There's thousands.
Absolutely not.
Of video. I don't know if there's thousands. There's definitely hundreds of videos about Zelda on my channel, but
yeah,
I don't
certainly.
know.
And I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, like people have probably noticed the thralls of Zelda stuff I have behind me, including my awesome new poster, and like we talk about this game since we had like a glimpse of a teaser. Basically, that's all we've talked about online.
Yeah.
You
know? Talking about Breath of the Wild has paid almost all of my bills that I have. So, even if it wasn't a fun game, I love it just because I've been able to make a job about it. So, like, Breath of the Wild, it's a game that has literally changed my life. More so than just, like, Ocarina of Time. When I was a kid, like, I would come home, play it, be addicted to it. That and Majora's Mask. But with Breath of the Wild, it's like, every time there's a new release, I feel like I'm being sucked in to the world of Zelda more and more.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And I mean, like, I've been anxiously like waiting Zelda games before. The last time I was anticipating a Zelda release this much was Twilight Princess, I think. And I was like, a preteen, I think, maybe early teenager at that point. But with Breath of the Wild, it was like this. It was a big deal, all the way up to, and it's sort of launched my. I don't want to say my career because like I have a day job as well, but my way into this online community and working on this podcast even, because basically how I got started doing things online. I was already making videos. I've been making YouTube videos since like 2007, but when I started making gaming videos, that was much later, and then
to do that.
To do which?
To like start making videos as soon as I discovered that I could. Like I just it never clicked.
It's always been a sort of a passion project of mine, but then like when I was getting psyched for Breath of the Wild, I made a video about it, and then I sent that video to Zelda Informer, and then I started working there, and then I met you, and now we're here, and it's just like this game has been like this source of so many good things that have happened to me, including just like playing it with my son and bonding, that way. Like he loves the game too, and he's spent not as many as me, but lots of hours on it as well, and it's just. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the Zelda game that I've wanted for so long. Not everything about it's perfect, but it's had this huge impact on me for sure.
It's one of the few games that not only had a lot of hype behind it, but actually lived up and in many ways passed the hype. Because
absolutely.
Other than there not being traditional dungeons in the game, like that's the major downfall of the game, but even if you rank that as a huge negative for the game, everything else still makes it a 10 out of 10. So for it to change one of the best things about Twilight Princess, it's not the giant overworld, it's not necessarily all of the side quests, which some are good, but it's just how elaborate and huge and well thought out the dungeons are. But you get to Breath of the Wild, and those dungeons are nowhere to be found. Yet everything else is so great that it doesn't necessarily matter. So the fact that it had so much hype behind it and surpassed that is something that
and yet,
a lot of games just don't do.
And a lot of the issues that even I have with the game are kind of I even don't think they're that huge. That's fine by me. But like for example, like the lack of really intense, elaborate dungeons it's a big deal. It's a big missing piece of sort of the Zelda experience. But like when I'm playing the game, when I'm thinking about it, it's a big deal. But when I'm just sitting down and I actually play the game, I don't miss it. It's part of the Zelda experience. I would say it's part of the franchise at its core, but I wouldn't say that it's part of the heart of this game. And it doesn't. When I'm playing it, I don't feel like, oh, this game is missing something. When I played Skyward Sword, which don't get me wrong, I actually really do like Skyward Sword, but when I do play that game, I feel like I'm missing something. And so, even though it's sort of like in some fans' eyes an incomplete experience because it doesn't conform to the molds of this franchise, I still feel like it's a very whole, complete, concise game. Where you can spend hours getting just distracted by something, and then something else, and then you see something else, and then there's a boss to fight, and then there's a group of bokoblins, etc., etc. So that's why it's my number one. This got in depth, but I could talk about it for hours, I think.
Well, we have talked about it for hours.
we certainly have.
All right, so a quick recap. For me, it was Final Fantasy 15, Destiny 2, Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, and Breath of the Wild. Your top 5 were...
Fire Emblem Awakening, Mario Rabbids, Metroid Samus Returns, Mario Odyssey, and Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, so those are our top 5 games. There's a few crossovers there. But our top 5 games for 2017. But now it's time to move on to what we expect for 2018. So, Daniel, as of right now,
Jesse.
very, very last day of 2017. The videos on this channel are funded by supporters on Patreon like you. If you're a fan of this channel and would like to join on videos, receive shoutouts, watch videos early, have your questions answered, or have your topic discussed on our podcast, please consider supporting on Patreon for these and many other rewards for just $1. Shoutouts for this video includes Link Use the Triforce, Rusty Caulfield, Lovable Christie, Give Time 15, Shadow to Us, Robbie Morgan, and Lunarium. I want to thank all of you for everything you have done to help support this channel.